Hello, people. Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP ITV. I'm a national news channel in the UK. ATP Geopolitics, Ukraine War news update. It's the second part thereof for the 19th of September 2025. This is a video where I think I have too much information to impart to your good selves. So strap yourselves in. We're going to be talking military aid. There's an awful lot going on, an awful lot of developments, and also some sidebars about military developments in Europe and even as far as Canada, we'll be talking about that are connected to the war in Ukraine as well. I just want to say a big hello to all of you there. Martin Matter checking in from Hanover in Germany. And F. Oik, of course, checking in from Hungary Oblast. One of the good ones in Hungary, of which there are many. Unfortunately, not too many of them are ruling the country. Right, so thank you very much for tuning in for the news about the war in Ukraine. We are going to go first of all to talk about some generalities with regard to the war in Ukraine and supporting Ukraine militarily. Now, no reports reported this morning that Ukraine is deepening defense cooperation with foreign companies, 25 international firms, including 25, that's a lot of entities, including major global arms producers, are now at various stages of localizing production, meaning they are making things in Ukraine with the Ukrainians. You also have localizing production. I presume it doesn't mean that here. No, it doesn't mean that here, where the Ukrainians are localizing production of their products, weapons, in other countries. So we know that a drone factory has been set up in Suffolk in the UK. We know that rocket fuel manufacturing facility in Denmark is being set up for the Flamingo. We know a number of Ukrainian drones and vehicles are being built anywhere from sort of Spain to Eastern Europe and whatnot. So it is working both ways. But here, 25 firms, I presume that means inside Ukraine. Politico reports this includes flexible models like the Danish model as well. So also there is investment in Ukrainian defense manufacturing from outside nations and sources. So the Danish model is the Danish were the first to really start piling their money into the Ukrainian defense industry because they had exhausted most of what they were able to provide to Ukraine. And then the upcoming Defense City initiative, I need to look into that. Defense City, if anyone knows what that's referencing, let me know. Okay, so on top of that, we have this. So War Translated here referring to a Washington Post article whereby they say that with NATO off the table, for now, Ukraine and its allies are betting big on defense production. So there's a really big, I think, project to absolutely bolster defense production in Ukraine. That seems to be what is taking place. In absence of possibly all sorts of weapons coming in from, say, the US and other nations, where stockpiles are maybe low, not necessarily in the US, although they are low on certain things there, but they do have huge stockpiles of weapons that Ukraine would definitely need, like infantry fighting vehicles, Bradleys and whatnot. But in the absence of the US sending over piles of stuff, other than that which is bought, the option seems to be to put a load of money, load of investment into Ukraine and build up their manufacturing big time. I mean, it's a shame it's taken so long, but these things aren't, you can't build a munitions factory in weeks, right? It just does take a long time to sort these things out. So he continues here, billions are being invested to turn Ukraine into a major hub for drones and modern weapons for both the frontline and allied armies. One of the silver linings, and you don't want one of the best silver linings for this very dark cloud of the war in Ukraine to be a burgeoning military industrial complex in Ukraine, but you're going to struggle to make any other sector a massive success other than maybe the tech sector, though that would be connected to the military as well. The Ukrainians are at war, and they are going to struggle to do anything other than massively produce weapons and military adjacent stuff. So, yeah, I think a very successful military industrial complex after the war is something that Ukraine really need to be hoping for, so that they are the world leaders in drones, that they can go around the world saying, not only here are the best drones, and we know that because we've been testing them on the battlefield, but here's the best way of using them, and we will train you up. Ukraine need to be in NATO so that they can train NATO as effectively as possible to fight in wars. Okay, we're going to go now to the EU. Zelensky has confirmed the approval of the first oh no, not the EU, this is the US. So that's actually Metsola there, who is the EU, but actually this picture has no bearance on the words. Anyway, approval of the first US military packages under the PURL program. The packages include missiles for Patriots and HIMARS. PURL allows NATO countries to purchase US weapons for Ukraine. He did announce that at that presser. So what this means is that European countries, predominantly Canada and others as well, are able to buy equipment from the US, and they will hopefully expedite it to Ukraine. But again, it's the assistance really is coming from Europe, not so much from the US, as I've said before. Okay, well done, you're selling this stuff, but essentially you're profiteering off the war. That's essentially where the US is at broadly. We're going to come on to actually some other assistance taking place. Now, what is entailed in these orders from the US, as mentioned there, HIMARS and Patriot missiles, that's included, but we don't have too much other detail. Washington has approved the first package of military aid to Kyiv funded by NATO allies. So there are two shipments worth $500 million. I think that's $500 million each. And that is Elbridge Colby actually giving them the green light, and he's not a big fan of Ukraine, under a new mechanism called the Ukraine Priority Needs List, or the PURL. So that's good news. And there are some claims that already some of that stuff might be in Ukraine. So that's fantastic if that is indeed the case. Now, Ukraine is to receive over 33,000 AI-powered attack drone kits from the US. Technology allows UAVs to form swarms. Wow. So we might start seeing we say we might start seeing, I reported, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a month ago, that the Ukrainians had been working on drone swarms of up to 25 regularly. I think it's up to 100, maybe max, but really 25. Swarms of 25, but often less than that, fewer than that, which is brilliant. So although we haven't seen it, and they'll likely be keeping that very tight, keeping a very tight lid on that in terms of operational security, they are, it seems, going to be given an absolute ton of AI-powered drone kits that can be used in swarms. By the end of 2025, Auterion plans to supply Ukraine with 33,000 Nemix-powered attack drone kits under a contract with the Pentagon. Wow. Now, I don't know if this money is coming from elsewhere and they're paying the Pentagon and the Pentagon is sorting this out, or whether this is coming from the US and the money is part of, I don't know, for example, the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, the yearly budget for the Department of Defense or Department of War. That does include, I think 2026 includes $400 million for Ukraine as part of the NDAA. And then this year's one includes an amount. It could be coming from that. I have no idea. And it could also be that the Pentagon really wants to get American kit like this out there because they need to test it. I mean, as I've said many times before, Ukraine is a perfect testing ground for this kind of equipment. So absolutely fascinated to see how these will be used on the battlefield. AI-controlled drone swarms set to transform combat on battlefields, says the Financial Times there. This technology turns a group of drones into a single coordinated force capable of overloading enemy defenses. The publication notes Ukrainian companies are also actively testing similar solutions using unique combat data. And I think we have that coming in the Ukraine section later. We start with what other nations are giving to Ukraine, and then we look at what Ukraine is doing for themselves in the yellow tab group there. Okay, so the US also, the US International Development Finance Corporation, has made a $75 million commitment to the US-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund under the minerals deal. Ukraine will match the contribution. So the idea is that the US contribute a bunch to this minerals deal, then the Ukrainians contribute the same. Initial focus is on energy infrastructure and critical minerals projects. I don't know exactly what that will entail, though, on a more granular level. The EU, so now moving on to EU, is exploring, and I did mention this yesterday, using 170 billion euros, so around about probably $200 million, of frozen Russian assets to fund Ukraine. But I was saying yesterday that I wasn't 100% sure what this would look like. There is have I got that here? No. There is the idea that it is going to use bonds. And I think this is described in the Financial Times article here. So Brussels is preparing ways to use frozen Russian assets to back 170 billion euros of reparation loans to Ukraine, a move that would transform Kiev's finances, but risk a major confrontation with Moscow. The plans, long sought by Ukraine but under fierce debate within the EU, aim to enable Russian cash, in effect, to be transferred to Ukraine without technically seizing the assets outright. Under one scheme, according to 5 officials familiar with the preparations, the cash balances of Russian central bank assets under sanctions, which are held at Belgium-based central security depository Euroclear, would be used to buy zero-interest EU bonds. The capital raised would then be transferred to Ukraine in tranches. About 170 billion euros of the 194 billion of Russian assets held in Euroclear have matured and now sit as cash balances. Right, this is a bit of info that I was wondering how easy it would be to turn the assets into cash. And it turns out that most of it is actually in cash. Gee whiz, imagine having 170 billion euros in your bank. They've matured and now sits as cash balances on Euroclear's books. They must be making a killing on lending that out, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. A second option would use a special purpose vehicle to manage the funding arrangements, which may allow non-EU countries to participate. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen last week backed the reparation loans idea, saying it would only need to be repaid if Russia agreed to compensate Kiev for invasion damage. Rather than wait for the end of the conflict, the money will help Ukraine already today, she said. Brussels has intensified technical work on a proposal as a prospect for peace negotiations recede, with Russia sticking to its maximalist goals in Ukraine and the Trump administration reluctant to step up economic pressure on Moscow boost Ukraine's military capabilities. I mean, it seems to me now that peace is becoming more and more distant reality, peace negotiations at least. And I think the US is somewhat in agreement with that, judging by the sort of rhetoric that we're seeing at the moment. So it goes on and on there, but there could be alternative ways of providing this money to Ukraine without touching the money, so to speak. And that I'm not sure I fully understand that, but that sounds good in principle. Now, Spain has just come out and said, the economy ministers come out and said that they support the use of the frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine. He said that Madrid, quote, will look for creative ways to increase financing for Kiev. In his opinion, the use of frozen Russian assets is a justified step. Now, I don't know if that means like the original way of just giving them wholesale, or this kind of loan or bond manner, which is what here Max 25 is talking about. Most of the frozen assets held in the Belgian depository Euroclear will be used to purchase interest-free bonds. That's one of the options there. So anyway, I'm sure we'll hear more about that over the next weeks and months. Now, Ukraine's parliament has ratified a 100-year partnership agreement with the UK. I talked about this yesterday. Britain will provide 3 billion euros dollars from frozen Russian assets, 150 artillery systems, new mobile air defense, expanded training, support for long-range weapons production, and become a key partner in energy and critical minerals. I want to see more details on this. I don't know where that's exactly come from. We are going to be providing over £3 billion worth, so more than $3 billion a year until 2030-31. This is separate. This is $3 billion from frozen Russian assets, but then also thrown in is 150 artillery systems, new mobile air defense, expanded training, support for long-range weapons production, and a partner in energy and critical minerals. Maybe the UK is sort of elbowing themselves into position with the American minerals deal. Yeah, there seems to be some extra stuff being placed there from the UK that I wasn't aware of, but then I say so much now that I struggle to remember what I've said. Ukraine and Poland will deepen cooperation between their defense industries, according to Minister of Defense Denis Shmyhal. Key priorities include joint work, and what I found interesting here from Null reports is joint work on ballistic missiles. We'd heard that Germany's been supporting long-range weaponry for the Ukrainians. This is the first time I've heard the explicit reference to ballistic missiles. We've heard that possibly it pertains to the Lyuti long-range drones. Some people have been thinking maybe they're for helping to fund flamingos. Here, the mention is of ballistic missiles, but I don't know what the provenance of this claim is. I don't know where this claim has come from outside of no report. So, yeah, pinch of salt and all that. But he says, or they say, ballistic missiles and intelligence, artificial intelligence. So the Germans helping out with that. Now, Visioner here says, breaking the CEO of German weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall, so Armin Parpiger, who gets around, he's stated that this year mobile self-propelled anti-aircraft systems are planned to be delivered to Kiev to combat unmanned aerial vehicles, specifically the Sky Rangers, as in the unmanned aerial vehicles of Shahed drones and Garans and whatnot. And this is a Sky Ranger. That's on a Boxer chassis. We've seen the same one on Leopard 1 chassis, which is, I think, called the Sky Ranger, but maybe both of them are called the Sky Ranger. This also comes in a modular, a palletized platform. So I think the Ukrainians have two of the platforms out there, which can be operated remotely. Here's a one on a Boxer chassis. Quote, we signed a contract with Ukraine in London for the delivery of new mobile systems, the Sky Rangers, Parpiger noted. Each of these systems ensures, and I talked about the range here the other week, a 4 by 4 kilometer zone in which is fully protected from drones, like fully protected. So I don't know how many of these you would need to sit around Kiev. Obviously, there will be hundreds of kilometers around there. But if they're mainly coming from one direction, I guess you could put, if you're buying 50 of these, then that's 200 kilometers worth of coverage. And, it sounds like fully protected means, no drone will be able to pass through a 4 by 4 area. Well, that's 200 kilometers with 50 of these bad boys. I'll be getting an absolute ton of these, to line them up on not on the border, but fairly close to the border to hit these before they get closer to urban areas. But anyway, that's something to look forward to for the Ukrainians. Here is just seeing if there's anything going on in the live chat now. Everyone's just having a good old natter. Visioner again talking about Germany, and Ukraine discussed issues of, quote, production and maintenance of Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. So these are, like, if you like, the much older version of the Sky Ranger. These have been around for decades and decades, although they have improved the. There you go. That's a really good image there. It's a good video still. A number of these right next to each other. They've got I think it's a 25 kilometer radar on top. There is the Gepard, which is the original. Then there's a Cheetah. Gepard literally means cheetah in German, but the Cheetah designation is actually a slightly upgraded Dutch variant of the Gepard. Now, they have updated rounds that they're firing from these at the moment that are better. I don't know in terms of, I don't know what the metric of success there is, how they measure that. or what they're better at doing. I know that they can fire proximity fuses, that means they explode kind of next to or near the Shaheds, and kind of rather than having to have a direct hit, they can rain shrapnel and stuff like that onto them and take them down. So different ways of taking Shaheds down with these Gepards. But anyway, those are Gepards. People saying that they didn't get a notification. That's because I decided to do this live on the spot, did the metadata, and then there was no chance to give any notification. So sorry about that. That's my fault. So anyway, going back to Gepards. So there are supposedly issues of production and maintenance of Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft systems, and that was discussed at the DSEI 2025 International Exhibition site in London. That's where we just heard Armin Parker was signed that deal. Anyway, this was a discussion with KNDS CEO Ralph Ketzel. KNDS formally does not disclose details, but notes that it is engaged in the technical maintenance and restoration of Gepard together with Ukrainian specialists, as Ukraine had previously reported the repair of at least 3 such machines on its territory in Ukraine within the framework of cooperation has taken place. So they are fixing them in a localized manner, which is good. The practical meaning of these negotiations is probably not so much the rapid assembly of new machines, but rather the expansion or of repair capacity and localization of the service chain, organizing overhaul points, license supply and production of spare parts, training Ukrainian technicians, and creating regulatory documentation and testing infrastructure. All very interesting stuff. Full resumption of serial production will require time and investment, including licenses, component warehouses, assembly and control lines. So the realistic path is more likely to go through a scalable program of restoring decommissioned machines and gradual localization of components. I don't know if they still got any more of these on the way. If we go to deaidua.org/en, this is Germany to Ukraine's site for planned deliveries and total deliveries of what Germany has given to Ukraine. If we go to the planned deliveries, we can see if there are any more on the way. So lots of IRIS-T surface-to-air missile systems, both the medium and the short range, Patriots launchers and a system there. Cheetahs, right, this is what we want to see. So 7 Cheetahs appear to have been pledged, but I presume therefore haven't got there yet. We've got 2 Ereclean Skynecks. So those Skynecks are basically what you saw before. They're the updated Gepards, but I'm wondering whether the Oerlikon Skynecks. So Oerlikon, I don't think these are on a. These are the platform ones. Yeah, so you can see it there. Skynecks. These are the palletized ones. Yeah, that's what they are. So that's interesting. So I thought they had 2 of those already in there, but we can look to see whether that's the case further up. And no more Gepards I can see. We've got 32 Leopard 1A5 still to come. There's lots of stuff still pledged. But I don't think we've got any Gepards. So I'm going to look at Skynecks, Control F, Skynecks. So they have got 2 Skynexes have gone, and there are 2 more on the way. So that's good news. And then that's ammunition for Skynecks. It's a really good website. Germany to Ukraine maintains an excellent website here that's really very useful. If we look at Gepards, we can see that. If I could spell, they have received 52 Gepards and 8 Cheetahs, so that's 60 in total of the 2 variants. They have spare parts there, no ammo, and then so no more. So all the Gepards are gone. We've got 8 Cheetahs have gone, and I think we are going to see then that they have 7 more Gepards still, Cheetahs still to go. So that's where they are with those air defense systems. And there's discussion from what I was just talking about with regard to maybe localizing production in Ukraine. I don't think they're really going to be building Gepards in Ukraine, but they certainly want to be creating spare parts and maintaining and repairing them as much as possible there. Okay, Moving on, but staying on Germany, the 23rd Engineering Positional Regiments published footage of the construction of defensive positions in eastern Ukraine. For a few seconds, we got the first footage of one of the 6 German-delivered high-mobility engineer excavators, which were delivered from Bundeswehr stocks. That's the German army stocks. As I've said many times, Germany really have picked up where the US left off. So I see Germany as essentially the big supporter of Ukraine at the moment. And thank goodness that Friedrich Merz won the elections and not, say, for example, AfD. So long may their support for Ukraine continue. Here we have Euromaidan Press stating that Germany now supports making Russia pay for the war it launched using Moscow's. I should have had this earlier. So Germany also support the $300 billion in frozen Russian assets being used to fund Ukraine's defense. Then this is a change from Germany. They previously were supportive of skimming off the profits, which I've been advocating for, but now they are supporting giving it wholesale to Ukraine. And the reason why is because they understand that as the US has stepped back, then Germany now has stepped up and has replaced the US as essentially the biggest supporter of Ukraine in military terms. And if there isn't an access to 300 billion euros of funding, then that's going to be a massive drain on Germany. If Germany are the new US in terms of Ukrainian support, then they are unlikely to be able to afford that, because the difference between the US and Germany is predominantly the US has massive stockpiles of weapons that are sitting there ready to go. Not all the time, but in certainly a number of categories. So when you talk about Humvees, they're trying to get rid of 240,000 Humvees, 240,000 Humvees is however many the Americans have, and they're phasing those out because Humvees are kind of at the end of their life. They've got I'm probably going to get this wrong. One of them is something like 4,000, the other 6,000 Bradleys and Abrams tanks just sitting out in the desert. So they have a lot of scope to help Ukraine an awful lot, whereas Germany do not have those stocks. Nothing close to that. So whatever Germany gives from its stocks is pretty precious to Germany, and they're essentially having to build a lot of stuff as well, or get old bits of kit from elsewhere. So getting hold of these Leopard 1A5s, getting hold of these Gepards and Cheetahs, getting hold of all of these other bits and pieces from other places around the world. Now, Latvia has transferred the second batch, I presume that's all of them now, of Patria CAVS 6x6 armored personnel carriers. Remember, 6x6 means all 6 wheels drive, so they're 3 wheels on each side. This is part of the larger 42 unit pledge by Latvia. Maybe it's not the final part, but that they're doing a good job. The Ukraine need this kind of kit, don't they? I don't know what weaponry it comes with, if any, but a bit like the Striker, it probably has different armaments you can put on top, or none. I guess the Ukrainians would really like some Strikers. Strikers, I think, would be really good. They use them very well up in Kursk, and they were able to withstand quite a lot of strikes from FPV drones. I was reading an astonishing story about a tank up in Kupiansk area. I think it's a Leopard 2 tank that withstood something like 15 drones, including Lancet drones and all sorts, and was managed to be dragged back to the Ukrainians. It went on this assault, and then it withstood an awful lot. Incredible. But I'll tell you about that tomorrow. Ireland is sending new military aid to Ukraine. Neutrality prevents offensive weapons being delivered, but a new package includes 34 vehicles and 3D mining robots to support the country's humanitarian needs. And of course, that's super useful. Thank you, Ireland. Now, I thought this was quite interesting, because I often wonder about how Ukrainian missiles and drones are launched, and Russians, and whether you need particularly complex machinery to do so, or relatively simple. Quite often you see these kind of catapults for the smaller drones, almost like big massive rubber bands, and you fling the drone up and it gets enough momentum, and then it can sustain itself to go forward. But you also get launch mechanisms, fairly simplistic, like this. Ukraine apparently uses the Estonian CATA launcher, Kata launcher systems for its long-range drone strikes on Russia. The CATA launcher handles strike drones weighing up to 400 kilograms and traveling at speeds of up to 55 meters per second. So Estonia helping out there. Good stuff. And then we have news that Norway's deployed a large-scale training camp in eastern Poland for Ukrainian soldiers, with instruction provided by Norwegian instructors. Camp Jomsborg. I really should get my. No, I'm actually watching a Swedish show at the moment because we do like a bit of Scandinavian noir. So watching The Glass Dome on Netflix, but that is indeed Swedish, not Norwegian. So I was saying to Helen, I really need to pick up my Swedish. Tack. That's as far as I've got. Tack, which could be anywhere in Norway, in Scandinavia, and say that. Anyway, I digress. So Camp Jomsborg is described as one of the largest camps Norway has ever set up, with hundreds of Norwegian soldiers present. Training at the camp includes highly realistic combat simulations and specialized thematic modules. The first focus on stress in combat conditions and control methods. I do often wonder about these situations where I'm fairly sure Ukrainians are going to be better able to train Norwegians and NATO troops than any allied nation is able to train Ukrainians. But of course, the people they need to train need to be fighting on the front lines. But I suppose you can just do basic generic combat training for your newbies, for your green recruits and whatnot. But essentially, no one knows better how to fight wars at the moment than the Ukrainians themselves. There is. So Estonia, somebody, I think Ronnie was saying this. So Estonia had to scramble again for 3 Russian fighters in the air. They were in the air for 12 minutes by all accounts. And someone was saying it took 12 seconds for the Turkish to shoot down that. Do you remember they shot down, was it Su-24? I don't know, like 7 years ago or something. I forget when it was. But the Turkish shot down a Russian fighter jet with no compunction. They're like, yeah, it's in our airspace. Get out of our airspace. Hasn't got out of the airspace. Right, we're taking it down. Bang. And then that caused some ruckus between Russia and Turkey. But they got over it really quickly, right? And we're like, we're allowing these 3 Russian MiGs were flying over Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. And you're like, please, can you go? Russian MiGs, can you hear us? No, we can hear you. Yeah. Do you mind going? No. Sorry, can't hear. I said, can you go? Always works this one. Can't hit it. And the Estonians like, oh man, they're taking a piss. Just shoot them down. Just shoot them down. I'm not advocating starting World War III proper from a NATO point of view, but at some point, NATO has to get some backbone and say, do you know what? You are taking the mick. If we flew 3 jets for 12 minutes into Russia, well, I don't know. Let's try it out. See what they do. Anyway, I do digress, but thank you, Grunge Thing. Thank you, Ronnie, for giving me that segue into. Actually, no, it wasn't a segue. It's a sidebar. Right, going back to Norway, and then on to France. But we are going to stay on the plane topic here. It's reported that France delivered only 5 Mirage 2005Fs, and of course, one of those has been lost to malfunction. And it crashed. Luckily, the pilot survived. To Ukraine, I've only given 5. So by the end of 2023, 28 of the aircraft were still in service with the French Air Force. And according to the latest edition of Defense Key Figures, a year later, and after the President of the Republic's decision to send some of these aircraft, only 23 remained. So just simple maths there indicates that 5 have been given. Now, Macron has many times talked about getting more Mirages to Ukraine. Indeed, relatively recently, he said that only like a week and a half ago. And it could be that some people have been talking about all Mirage 2005S should go from France because they're not the newest planes. They obviously have a particular role, but it's conceivable that France could just deliver all of them to the Ukrainians. There are also other nations that operate them, particularly in the Middle East. So we go Mirage 2005F. We go to the wiki page. Wiki pages are usually pretty good for military equipment because the people that maintain them do a really good job of updating them, actually, not only with all the basic information, but updating who operates them and when they're getting some. So the Ukrainian information is often very well updated on wiki pages. They are an absolutely magnificent source. I think, you know, people too easily slag off Wikipedia, but then use it so often themselves. So anyway, there's a section here on the Mirage here, and including the one that crashed in Volyn Oblast. And the Mirage 2005F there is the first major upgrade over the Mirage 2000C. And it got, what did it get? I have discussed this with you before. Edition allowed the aircraft, so it entered limited service, radar system. So upgraded radar system, which allows it to use longer range missiles. So that's pretty useful. And then there are different variants of the 5F and whatnot. But I wonder, so here we go, variants. 2005F is what we're looking for. So 2005E, no. 5F Ukraine. So maybe there are other 5 variants, but they're not the 5Fs. But it depends whether Ukraine can be trained on those and what the difference is. I'd need to go and look into these. They've been retired, actually. So it doesn't look like any other nation operates them. But there are claims that I just said how useful this is, but it doesn't have the 2005Fs operated by France in here. And the claim is that 23 of them are still operated by France. So I might have to look into that. But it'd be interesting. I mean, maybe that only the French do operate the 2005F, and there might be not much scope for getting more of them outside of France. I'll have to look into that one. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Czech initiative, and it's bad news here if the elections in Czechia go as expected, where the right-wing populists are expected to win. That's the ANO party. They're not like the wingnut ones on the right, but they are bad enough to not be particularly supportive of Ukraine. So Czechia is a super important supporter of Ukraine, not only for where it is in terms of logistics and all sorts, but the Czech initiative in getting all of these artillery shells to Ukraine, in its industry being well used to support, for example, the fixing up of those shells before they get to Ukraine, but also quite a lot of stuff is built in Czechia. Now, I doubt the new PM will come in and shut down manufacturing because, you know, not even Robert Fico's done that in Slovakia. He's like, we don't want to give anything to Ukraine, but hey, we'll still build it and sell it to you, a bit like Trump, really. But anyway, the former Prime Minister Andrej Babis, who has moved steadily to the right, has branded the Czechs' Ukraine ammunition initiative rotten. So that's the opinion of the person who's likely to be the new prime minister after October's elections. He's vowed to scrap the program if his ANO party wins the October parliamentary elections. So that's something to look forward to. You're just looking at these different elections as potential to have pro-Russian leaders and politicians gain prominence, power, momentum. Like if Reform win in the UK, that's more likely to happen in the UK. We know from stats that Reform voters are, even though it's still not great in the UK, there's still not a huge support for Russia at all. We're one of the countries in Europe that most dislikes Russia, according to polls. But Reform UK is like many times more support for Russia than any other party in the UK. The AfD in Germany, big time. They are looking like they're gaining momentum at the moment, although some saying recent elections locally. I heard two things. One, that the AfD did really well in one local election, and then another claim that they didn't do very well in another particular set of elections. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyway, AfD are in the generic polls doing really well. Then you've got FPO in Austria. Then you've got Rassemblement National in France. You've got MAGA in the US, obviously. You've got Vox in Spain, and then you've got the Eastern Europeans. So you've got the PIS in Poland wanting to get together with Confederation, who are very, very right wing and very pro-Russian, and then you've got Romania and Moldova, both, all these elections, because once you have presidential elections, then you have general, parliamentary elections, and so every country is having elections all the time, and it's just every election I'm just looking at it going, how much are the Russians going to gain here? How much are the Russians going to gain here? And it's pretty depressing. And as Cheryl says, it's largely about weaponizing immigration. It would be really nice if you had an anti-immigration party who was just like massively overtly pro-Ukrainian, because I don't know what it is. I'm not massively anti-immigration, right? My position on immigration is it's freaking complicated. I'm not really sure what I think, because I can see arguments for and against and blah, 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 and economic arguments and falling birth rates and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, forget my opinion, but just like, if you're going to have an anti-immigration party, please can you just be pro-Ukraine? And I don't understand why anti-immigration parties are so, I say so often, like almost always, massively anti-immigration populist parties are pro-Russian. I just don't get it. Like, why is that almost a necessary connection there? Anyway, there you go. BME, thank you for your support. ATP Geopolitics, have a great stream, Jonathan. Enjoy your cup of NAFO tea. Got to jump out. Catch you all later. So thank you for popping in and out. Sorry, these are big ones. Now, interesting, because I have been wondering about this. Confederation, so the Confederation Party, which is your right wing. So to remind you, like I just said, Law and Justice Party, or PIS in Poland, are right wing populists, but they're actually broadly pro-Ukraine and anti-Russia. I think just because of the history of Poland with Russia, although you could argue that the right-wing populists in Hungary should be anti-Russia given the history in Hungary. But anyway, the PIS has been drifting more and more towards not supporting Ukraine. And as they've got closer to Confederation and talking about like a coalition, then they seem to be adopting more of Confederation's viewpoints. But anyway, Confederation in Poland actually lost a good chunk of support recently. It's not yet decided that anti-Ukrainian sentiment will win in Poland. It's interesting that Donald Tusk has been talking about how there is this sentiment shift, and they have to do something about this move, this public sentiment that seems to be moving against Ukraine in Poland, that has taken root more. I think more significantly, but hopefully that tide can be stemmed and reversed. So thank you for that. I really appreciate any input from people who live in places that I don't, which is incidentally just most places on earth, because I only live in this house. So any of you that have opinions about where you live, and as long as they're fairly solid and decent sentiments and well evidence, then please do add them to the chats. Scruffy Tail's always good to have Scruffy on board. He did a video, I haven't looked at it, did a video documenting all the Swedish, because Sweden's just given an absolute massive package, a ton of stuff is on the way from Sweden to Ukraine. And also they made some cryptic, Scruffy, if you can put in the live chat what you think was being referred to when Sweden said, we're giving some other stuff, but you'll see it when it's on the battlefield. Like my first thing is I just go straight to Gripens, right? I'm like, yeah, let's see those Gripens flying around. But I don't know if that's the case. It could be something like more CV90s or something. But anyway, Sweden given a ton of stuff. Scruffy has done a whole video on that equipment. He says the Swedish anti-immigration party in Sweden seems very anti-Russian. Interesting. They made an official statement when Russia invaded Ukraine that Swedes must stand united against the threat of Russia. Really good. I have a sense that the Scandinavian nations just bucked the trend somewhat. I was listening to an analysis. I was actually listening to the Prime Minister of Norway, Støre, interviewed on the Rest is Politics, and he was talking about how the right-wing populists in Norway aren't the same as the right-wing populists in, say, Eastern Europe and France and whatnot, that they're not so crazy out bonkers, that they're actually a little bit more sensible. So I think maybe I wonder if the Nordic nations are just a little bit more sensible in general. But there you go. Okay, but let me know about that, Scruffy, if you can add about what you think this cryptic, if I've interpreted that correctly, but they did say, wait and you'll see it on the battlefield, unless I've misremembered. Okay, so we move on. Sorry, that was quite a large digression. Norway opens, now talking about Norway, we've already done that. They've opened a large military training camp. A 23-year-old Ukrainian brigade instructor who survived battles in Bakhmut's meat grinder now helps Norwegian forces design realistic combat training at a secret military camp in Poland. So that's really important. The training has to be using feedback from the front lines. It really is super important. Okay. Then we have a couple more for this section. 26 countries are ready to provide guarantees on land, at sea, and in the sky. This is the security guarantees. The appropriate forces have already been deployed. The number, we are arguing about the number. That's according to Zelensky. And some Western allies are very afraid, especially those countries that border Russia. They know the Russians. It's interesting. So some of those countries, because they're so close to Russia, don't want to give troops to Ukraine because actually they want to keep them there for their own countries in case they are invaded by Ukraine. So it's more likely to be, the main backbone of any security forces are going to be UK and France, it appears. And then everyone else sort of filling in the gaps. Germany's going to be an interesting one. It wouldn't surprise me. They seem to have said no, but then also said maybe. We haven't decided yet. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. But anyway, this is a very emerging topic. This, as in, information comes out and then actually it changes. Very varying. Before we go on to the Ukrainian, here we go. So I was waiting for you, Scruffy. Anti-drone tech has been worked on by Saab for some time. That might be what the secret support might be. And actually, I should have shared something with you. I was meant to share, or maybe I did. Saab. I don't know if I've got time to find it now. I'm sure I won't be able to find it. Saab had some videos of firing things at drones and developing new anti-drone tech. So it could be that. I think that sounds pretty plausible, actually. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, but there's some videos. I'm sure I had it stacked up to show you, but I don't know that I've talked about it. Anyway, maybe I'll remember to do that again. Okay. So Taiwan, this isn't to do with Ukraine, but I think it's part of the same ideology where under the Biden administration or probably traditional American administrations, they'd be up for giving loads of assistance to Ukraine, as Biden did, and we can criticize Biden for X, Y, and Z, but loads of stuff did go from the US, and they were, the relationship was good, and and also they were promising loads of stuff to Ukraine, and it was all part of the same kind of packages. They were splitting, if you remember, they're splitting out Taiwan. First of all, they're splitting it separately, and then they were going to add it all in together, and then separately, and whatever. But it was a kind of a given that the US would be supporting Ukraine and the US would be supporting Taiwan. And then Trump's come in. It's like, no, we're not going to support Ukraine, and then eventually saying, okay, we will support Ukraine, but only if you buy stuff off us, which isn't really supporting Ukraine. Now they are doing obviously intelligence sharing and stuff like that. So there are still very significant ways the US is supporting Ukraine, of course. But in terms of just raw material, that's not forthcoming anymore. And now Trump has blocked $400 million of US military aid package to Taiwan, right? So what's interesting here is one of the arguments you hear most often, and this actually comes from people like Elbridge Colby, who is your kind of 2IC in the Department of War. Elbridge Colby has been like, no, why are we supporting Ukraine? We should be supporting Taiwan against China. So you had these China hawks that are really worried about China. But then you've got this isolationist wing that surrounds Trump, I think, whereby it's a case that no one in the world is an ally. And it's that zero-sum game transactional approach to geopolitics, where there's no such thing as a positive sum game, which is to say that sorry, I've still got you up there, Scruffy. That's how much I rate you. So the positive sum game is that if we do something with these guys, then both of us can gain, right? Just to explain, because English isn't everyone's first language. So that's called a positive sum game, where like we can put like $20 in and we improve by $40 and they improve by $40. Like everyone wins. A positive sum game is like if the others gain, if the others do well, if their economy does well, or if their armed forces do well, or if anything does well from these guys, we lose. So zero-sum game means that if they increase by 20, we decrease by 20. So the sum of those two is 0. So plus 20 minus 20, that's a zero-sum game. I know I'm explaining English, but, not... Anyway, it might be useful for some people. So Trump's approach to all politics internationally is everything is a zero-sum game. That any other country doing well is necessarily means that the US is doing badly. And your gain is our loss. So you cannot gain because we are all competitors. We are not allies. I don't believe in NATO. I don't believe in WHO. I don't believe in the EU. I don't believe in any of these alliances. It's everyone's in it for themselves. And if you gain, we lose. It doesn't matter whether you're China or France or Belgium or Vietnam. If you gain, we lose. So he looks at everyone in those terms. And that means that when he looks at Taiwan, he says, well, if we give you stuff, then we're going to lose out there. But also, Taiwan is a semiconductor, makes all these microchips and whatnot. Well, actually, rather than seeing them as an ally and wanting them on side, and we're working with you for a positive sum game, both of us gain. Like you make semiconductors and chips, and we import them at a good rate, and then blah blah blah. He's like, actually, you're a competitor, so we want to build those things ourselves. And therefore, why are we giving you? Trump doesn't care about Taiwan's independence, right? He couldn't give a monkey's ass about that. It's the same with Ukraine. Trump doesn't give a damn about Ukraine. He doesn't give a damn about Ukrainian people and their sovereignty and their feelings of being invaded and the feelings that blah, blah, blah. He doesn't care, right? He's like, why are we putting money into there? Because that's money that should be spent over here. And why are we helping out Taiwan when they're a competitor? And if they're producing semiconductors, we're not producing them. And that's a net loss to us. So he's now started saying things, and he said it in public. Why are we helping them? Like they are, they're doing us over because they produce all these semiconductors. We need to produce them. Now, actually, Biden was kind of aware of this to a degree. So he started this Chips and Science Act to try and build up, for national security reasons, a manufacturing base of this kind of tech in the US. So that is, I'm not saying that you should just go, oh, Taiwan, yeah, it's fine if you make all of that. We'll just buy it off you. Because if Taiwan then goes south, if it gets invaded by China, then you're cut off with all those really important components. So it's really important the US does build that stuff, but it's also really important Taiwan does not go under the Chinese sphere of influence. It's not invaded, right? So yeah, he seems to be just going against that and going against the China hawks. So these people that don't put money into Ukraine because China's our big worry, Elbridge Colby, and now surely going, hang on. So this may cause a rift in even in the MAGA Republican sphere where Trump's now going, actually, I don't give a damn about Taiwan either. And they're going, okay, well, we're just going to give China the entire power in the Indo-Pacific. And Trump's probably like, yeah, whatever, they can have that. Russia can have Europe, and we're going to have Greenland, Canada, and Venezuela and Mexico. And that's how I see the world. So anyway, that's, I think, pretty damn worrying. I don't know if that's anything that you guys agree with or not. Okay, thank you very much. Agree, JP. It's all economics, tariffs, and trade deals. Yeah, 100%. Really, I haven't been looking closely enough, Paul. Paul Gooded-Deberich says Colby has now pivoted to the war in the USA. Nothing else matters. And you're actually seeing this quite a lot. You're seeing that the drug trade from Venezuela is like an American war. That's war on us. But it's the internal war. It's ICE and immigrants. And we have this national emergency, and we need to get rid of all of these brown-skinned people and whatnot and get them all out of the United States. Yeah, and it could be that actually they're happy to pivot away from anything outside of the US, really. Okay, so now we're going to go on. I told you this is going to be a long one. I have an awful lot to get through. Yes. Well, not everyone agrees with me wholly. M. Melchio, I agree with JP partially. Not entirely. I'll take that. I'll take a partial agreement. Okay, so yes, somebody just talking about books to read. That's Serhii what's the name? Serhii Plotki? No. Anyway, Kathy says, I have the book Gates of Europe, just not read it yet, just the first chapter. That is a history of Ukraine right through the ages, right back to 2,000 years ago. It's a good book. It's dry. It's a history book. It's a good book. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I've been distracted by your chat. Right, we're going to go on to Ukrainian stuff now. Ukraine is already producing 50 flamingos per month. Now, this is a claim that's coming out quite a lot at the moment. A number of places have been saying this. This is coming from tech.liga.net here. That's the source. I like Military News UA because they put a source often below. People like Max 25 don't always put sources, or if they do, they just name the source, and then you have to go and find the article to just fact check that the interpretation of Max 25 is actually correct. Anyway, I digress. Ukraine is already producing 50 flamingos per month. Now, if this is true, where are they? Now, we have seen some flamingos, but yeah, are they stockpiling them for a massive attack? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Previously, the figure had reached 30. Now, I was under the impression that it was 1 a day, which was 30, and they were going to push it up to 7 a day, which would be, well, far more than 50 by October, or in October, by the end of October. I wasn't quite sure. And this fits in line with that, which is 30, 50 now, moving to 7 missiles daily. 7 times 3 is 21, so 210. That would be 210 of these a month. By the end of the year, that's what they're hoping now. But then I heard that actually it's been put back to the beginning of the year 2026. So I don't know. There are various claims around here, and we need to be careful because this is the topic that gets everyone, myself particularly, the most excited, which is Ukraine prevails in the war by distance munitions. Like, they don't have to use their troops. They don't have to run into trenches. You can blow things up from a distance. You can cripple Russia's economy, and they necessarily have to come to the negotiating table. That's how you end a war, in my opinion. So these numbers are really exciting, and because we want to believe it, it's called the wishful thinking fallacy. We end up thinking it's true because we want it to be true. But just be careful. Now, in parallel, the company is developing also an air defense system. We also have this in conjunction with the claims there. This is a photo that is doing the rounds at the moment, and that's supposed to be a mini flamingo. Ukrainian Telegram channels report that the first photo of the Flamingo long-range cruise missile prototype has appeared online. Wow. Okay, so there's an awful lot going on at the moment with regard to flamingos. I don't know what the truth is, and whether flamingos might include these smaller ones, and they could be the ones including those numbers there. So who knows exactly? Then we see this. I don't really know where this is coming from, what the provenance of this is. But here's a picture of the Toloka being 12 meters long. What is a Toloka? Ukrainian Toloka underwater drone capable of a 2,000-kilometer range and carrying up to 5 tons of payload. Was presented in Lviv, but as normally with Max 25, there's no kind of sourcing of this and whatnot. I spoke to you, not you, because probably most of you wouldn't have been here, right at the beginning of my of this channel, and actually when it was on my other channel, talk to you about surely they've got to be developing submarine drones, or torpedo drones. You just send out from Odessa or wherever, they go across to Sevastopol, I was claiming at the time, but Novorossiysk now. And because there are booms across the port to mean that it's unlikely you're going to get anything like this. I don't know how far the booms go down, because the booms sit on top of the water and will stop USVs, like surface vehicles, from going into the port area. But I don't know if they have like shark nets coming down as well to stop submarine drones. I assume they'd be thinking about doing that, or presume they would have wanted to have done that. But surely, like, because I keep thinking there are so many ships in Novorossiysk area that need to be hit, and submarines, that I would have been working alongside working on ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, torpedo missiles, just torpedo drones. They go along, and then you put them on standby, and they're just sitting outside a port. And then the ship comes out the port to fire some cruise missiles, and then bam, blow that bad boy up. I'm not quite sure why Russian ships have not been targeted in Novorossiysk so much. It must be that their air defenses are just very good there, as you'd expect them to be. It's clear that the Ukrainians have tried to attack with USVs a number of times. They don't seem to have done too much damage to the naval vessels there. Now, Fabian Hoffman says, look, going back to Firepoint, who make the Flamingo, if the Firepoint is indeed producing 50 Flamingos per month, that would mean Motorsic scaled turbofan production, so the company that makes the turbofan motors for them, engines for them, production would roughly be 150% scaled up in just 3 weeks, which seems implausible given that they stated they were producing around 20 complete units when the missile was unveiled. And if that is the actual rate, is Firepoint producing them without firm orders, or why are we not seeing them in use? I mean, that's the point. Yeah. As Null Report says, Ukrainian missile maker Firepoint, known for the Flamingos, now producing 50 units monthly and aims to scale to 7 per day by year's end. So it's that same claim that's coming out. They're also developing a next-gen air defense system and supplying anti-spoofing software free of charge to other Ukrainian manufacturers. Wow. Their composite wing tech has slashed production time from 7 days to 2 hours, cutting costs without losing performance. Wow. I mean, the only thing is, where are they? Or is it a case that they are being used? We just don't know about them. Yeah, I don't know what Andrew Perpetua means by are the Flamingos in the room with us right now? Yeah, who knows? So it could be that they are producing them and they are being used, and we just don't know about their successes because the Russians are keeping it quiet, and actually the Ukrainians want to keep it quiet too. I am amazed at how much we find out about stuff. What did I find out about yesterday? MI6 in the UK, our military intelligence, is creating a dark web portal to be able to speak to undercover agents in Russia, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why the hell do we know this? Who sat there and said, let's tell the world about it? I don't understand why our most secret things are, we just have the need, we feel the need to just shout about them as much. And then I think, well, there must be a reason, because otherwise it's stupid, and no one does stupid things on purpose, right? So what would the rationale be for letting people know about this? So there is obviously a utility in PR of weapons and whatnot. Ukraine has tested new kamikaze drones apparently resistant to Russian jamming. Quote, strike drones are becoming a cheap and practical solution for the front line. So these are ones to use, like, and I've already shown you this before in Hits and Losses video, but this is it for today. They're obviously using these Shahed type drones, a lot smaller than the Shahed, but those kind of strike drones that you would more likely see on a longer distance being used on the front line to hit positions and whatnot. This is something I think the Ukrainians should be doing an awful lot more. They're affordable to manufacture and easily scalable, said Mikhailo Fedorov, the digital transformation minister. some of it is just misinformation. Yeah, that's the other option, is that they're just lying, but they're lying for particular reasons. Yeah. Some people saying it's counterproductive. Some people saying bad OPSEC. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, backfire. Well, okay. No, I'm too much good stuff going on in the chat, and it's going to derail me. Okay, Ukrainians. So we're back to swarm drones. So Ukrainian swarm drone AI startup has secured $15 million in record defense investment. Quote: "This funding enables us to scale our operations and offer advanced swarming capabilities to every unmanned vehicle in Ukraine and across NATO-aligned nations." Swarmer CEO Serhiy Kuprienko has said. You are going to see drone swarms be used more and more. Did you see the Chinese did this at, I don't know if they did it at the military parade, but they keep having these festivals where they do these amazing drone swarms lighting up pictures in the sky. And then the Pope did that after some band was playing, and then they had some kind of papal celebration, and they had a picture of the former Pope that's just died. They had a picture of him in the sky made of these drones, and it was just insane. And you're thinking, wow, you can make beautiful pictures out of drones. It's amazing. It's incredible that they can work in unison. And you're thinking, God, if every single one of those had a munition on board, and then he said, right, now made pretty lights, now go and blow all those things up over there. And these drones just swarm autonomously. And you've got thousands. I mean, if you can move them around to make lights, right? Surely you can move that many drones around with RPGs on to hit anything they can see. And you just you start seeing a Russian column of vehicles coming towards you, and you spotted them. They're like 20 clicks away now, and you're like, okay, get the 1,000 drones up. So you've got some maybe underground warehouse where you've got 1,000 drones, and they just all pop up, and autonomously, just like, right, they're over there. You set them in a general direction, and they all just fly off, and then you're like, yeah, done that. I didn't even need to control them. Just sent them up. There's 1,000 drones. They go and just destroy everything, and that's basically where I think we're kind of going. Ender's Game stuff. Yeah. So have you seen the film or read the books? I've not read the books, but yeah. Okay. I'm getting a bit of an insult here. JP, at one point, I thought you'd make a good head of NATO, but you sound more like Kenny Everett's character, Bomb the Bastards, these days. Yeah, maybe. So let's go back to drone swarms. Now, I want to just show you this. I saw this. I don't know who Robert Sterling is. I think he's a former finance bro, Marine. Yeah, so he's a Marine. So this is someone who's Yahoo. America's awesome. So he said this: look at this absolute unit that just checked into Marine Officer Candidate School. You'd have to be insane to start a war with America. And as a number of people have said, this is so unbelievably naive. Like, have you not been watching the war in Ukraine? What use would that unit have there? That human specimen have there? Okay, he can bench press whatever, right? But I don't know whether that is as useful as you think it is. To the point that where people have been saying quite rightly, John Jackson here says, I know 90-pound female drone operators in Ukraine with more confirmed kills than smallpox. Your post goes hard if you don't know jack shit about modern warfare. And that's absolutely right. So, I mean, I don't know as much probably as Robert Sterling. He's a Marine. He's advisory, blah, 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 blah. Okay, wonderful. But maybe he thinks that's what makes America completely unattackable. But I don't know. As Intel Schizo says, in answer to that same post, as the Russians found out, big muscular men don't mean much on the modern battlefield and meet the same end as a scrawny guy by a drone operator 50 kilometers away. And there is a drone operator sitting on a beanbag with dreadlocks. Well, not dreadlocks, plaited hair. A female, sitting down, blowing up crap at 50 kilometers. So I think we need to change our idea of, and this is a kind of Pete Hegseth. I want war fighters, and he's trying to get rid of women fighting, and he's obviously loving the idea of that's what a soldier looks like. And I don't know, Dimko Shliktenko, that I've interviewed a number of times, is as far as I can work out, a really good drone operator who does amazing stuff for the Ukrainians in the Donetsk region, and he's really thin and looks like your typical tech guy. And yeah, so I just some really naive opinions, I think, out there. Okay, so now we're going to go to more drone. Yeah, this indeed. Oh, sorry. Pete Hegseth's wet dream. Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Right. So Ukraine has interceptor drones capable of shooting down jet-powered Shahids. They are already in use, says Deputy Head of the Presidential Office, Pavlo Polisa. We also heard today that Ukraine is able to send up 1,000 drone interceptors. Is that right? On a given day? But Ukraine's interception rates still are not as good as they were. So I think the Russians are using drones in ways that makes it very difficult to intercept them. So even if you have enough interceptors, you need enough interceptors in the right place. And a lot of these drones are being sent to places like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk and slamming into cities and towns where there's very little time to be able to react to them. And it's very difficult to have a setup where you've got interceptor drones being safely kept like you can in Kiev area, where you're not under attack. You are just sort of sitting and waiting for Russian drones to fly overhead. Whereas that's very different to the front line. And the Russians are using some of these drones on the front line very effectively. The Ukrainians need to work out how to use these interceptor drones in all of these different domains. Ukraine has revealed the VATAG VATAG, a battlefield robot that carries over 2 tons, navigates GPS free, and even fights back with a 25mm cannon, built for autonomy, stealth, and harsh terrain. Now, we could go and look into that, but you get the idea there. That looks pretty awesome. We have here news that Ukraine's Ptashka Systems has designed net launchers. Now, we already know that net launchers are fairly well, I don't know if they're common, but we've seen them a number of times on the front line. So they fly above another drone, drop a net, and a net means that the propellers can't turn around and it's too heavy and it falls to the ground. They're also doing quite a lot, I think, and someone was saying that these are even better, even more effective, like dropping like threads, like carbon fiber threads or something, and they then get entangled in the propellers, and all you need is to drop one of them, and then that's the end of that drone. Like, drones are really good, but they're not particularly robust in terms of, the propellers are pretty vulnerable, right? But these net launchers that we've seen previously launch from above a drone to bring a drone down from flying. What they're being used now at the moment is this growing problem of roadside ambush FPVs, where the FPV is going to sit down and go into standby mode on a road or by the side of a road and wait for a Ukrainian or Russian vehicle to come along and then take off and then go and blow them up. I showed you a video the other day where there were 3 of these drones sitting next to each other in the middle of the road. 3 Russian drones, and a Ukrainian FPV drone just came and blew them all up. But they were waiting for Ukrainian vehicles. So now the Ukrainians have come up with, well, they haven't really come up with this; they already existed. But now they're using these nets to drop on these ambush drones, as you can see from the video there. So that the ambush drones just can't take off. There's no way that can take off, and that's the end of that drone. And you haven't wasted your own drone. It's a reusable drone. You just need to go back, load it with another net, bish bash bosh, yeah, so super useful there. That's excellent from the Ukrainians, right? There's also news of a new big drone. I've reported it's not the Buffalo. This is called the Buffalo, weirdly with one L, but not weirdly because I'm sure that's Ukrainian, but then that's not Cyrillic. So anyway, whatever. Buffalo drone. I've reported one similar to this, but it's like a car-sized drone, like an SUV, armored SUV, but it works autonomously. I think, is this autonomous? I don't know if it's autonomous. but this one actually works on diesel and fuel as opposed to being an electric drone. So it's a 4-ton ground drone named Buffalo, diesel powered, armored, built for AI assisted frontline logistics and demining. Its key advantage is its diesel engine. Fuel tanks can be scaled by mission, giving it a range of 100 to 200 kilometers without battery swaps. Developers say electric drones can't meet today's longer front lines. Buffalo's chassis is armored with European steel. It withstands any bullet and indirect 152mm artillery if shells land beyond 100 meters. Even if damaged, its wheels remain operational. The drone uses Starlink, the GPS or a radio link for communications. A CRPA antenna protects satellite signal from jamming. If Starlink fails or is disabled, a relay-equipped drone can take over the signal. So lots of thoughts gone into this. It uses onboard cameras to detect obstacles up to 15 meters away, suggest safe routes and stop if needed. Navigation is assisted by AI, but decisions stay, so it's not autonomous, they stay human controlled. But there is AI assistance there. The idea for the Buffalo came after the drone prototype failed a demo, losing a wheel and flipping. A soldier dismissed the tech, pushing Vladislav to start from scratch. His new team asked the general staff for requirements and collected feedback from frontline units. Requests included smoke grenades, armored wheels, a shielded bottom to resist mines, and Starlink integration. All were implemented. Okay, so there you go. It's modular, may get combat features soon. Team is exploring weapon modules and engineering tools like remote trenching scoops. An 11-channel radio jamming system has passed tests and is ready for integration. Wow. I told you this morning that Russians were complaining that the Ukrainians were using like 7 different bands, and it was very difficult to jam their drones. I think this was in the cross direction. I can't remember now. Yeah, and here the idea is you've got an 11-channel radio jamming system. That would be really amazing. Anyway, that's a new piece of kit. Ukraine's electronic warfare is increasingly disrupting Russia's invincible Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. Once an advantage, the missile's high speed now makes it vulnerable to jamming, forcing Moscow to spend more than $1.5 billion on countermeasures that still fall short. I did report this the other day, but just to remind you. So sources say Ukraine's electronic warfare is disrupting Russia's prized missile with growing success. Good news there. Now, one of Ukraine's most feared innovations is a ionic magnetic influence fuse, which is used to create proximity. I'm going to pause that there because this Russian guy, just gets blown up in a second. Which is used to create proximity-activated booby traps. A Russian source describes in detail how it functions, warning, do not move, do not touch, do not approach. Writing on the Russian media network VK, Warrior describes how Ukraine uses ionic fuses against Russian soldiers. Quote, despite the fact that many fighters have heard about mined backpacks, first aid kits, drones, and various IEDs, which detonate when picked up or approached, there are still frequent cases when another unpleasant incident occurs. A fighter shows interest in another object, which explodes during his study, and the matter lies in the electronic board of the initiation of the explosive device with non-contact target sensors. Non-contact target sensors have been used in various mines for a long time. However, such sensors were and are produced in fairly large dimensions from components of previous generations, being large in size and quite energy intensive. Today, when the enemy has access to modern power elements to an unlimited number of cheap electronic components, the situation has changed, allowing the enemy to establish production of very light and compact electronic boards for initiating an explosive device with non-contact target sensors, which in specialized circles have received the common name ionic. Ionic has quite small dimensions. Its length is 6.5 centimeters, not kilometers. Its height is 4 centimeters, width 3 centimeters. The operation of the ionic is based on 3 target sensors. Gyroscope, a sensor of angular orientation in space responding to tilt. Accelerometer, a sensor of the speed of the object along one or more axes responding to movement. A magnetometer, a sensor that responds to changes in the background magnetic field. And actually, there's a big complaint at the moment. I think I've got it in for tomorrow's hits and losses video, that Russians are complaining the Ukrainians are using, I think, magnetometer, fuses and mines that are really being effective at the moment. The ionic operates using a 3-volt power supply. An electric detonator, which is placed in the explosive mass, is connected to the terminals. When one of the sensors is triggered, approaching a metal object, lifting or turning, an electric pulse is sent to the detonator and the charge is detonated. depending on the version of the Ionic, the board implements a long-range arming function, a timer that after a certain period of time switches the device to a working state and its target sensors begin to respond to changes in the external environment. This function is necessary so that the drone with the mine can fly to the drop point. A self-destruction. So, wow. So this can set things off like a long-range arming function. So a timer that after a certain period of time switches the device to a working state and its target sensors begin to respond to changes in the external environment. This function is necessary so that the drone with a mine can fly to the drop point. A self-destruction function responsible for detonation before the battery runs out. Initially, the enemy used Ionic in PTM3 mines instead of the standard VT06 detonator. Later, when the PTM3 became smaller, the enemy started producing mine bodies that were externally similar to the PTM3, so the enemy being Ukrainians. However, unlike the rather complex internal structure of the real PTM3, the Ukrainian is an ersatz version, simply fills the body with explosives, installs a detonator with a connected Ionic, and drops it from a copter. And although such a mine is relatively safe for armored fighting vehicles, for light-wheeled motorcycles or automobiles and foot soldiers, such a mine poses a serious threat. In addition to ersatz copies of the PTM3, due to its compact size, the Ionic is used to create various booby traps that look like various objects, for example, as if accidentally dropped radios, medical pouches, backpacks, abandoned boxes, etc. The enemy also installs a Ionic with a small explosive charge on many drones, with the expectation that if such a drone is shot down or falls, then when trying to approach it and pick it up, a detonation will occur. The main threat of the Ionic is hidden in the sensitive magnetometer, which does not require any contact with a mine or mined object. The magnetometer can provoke a detonation when a soldier who has a large number of metal objects with him, a rifle, ammo, etc., simply approaches the device with the Ionic. In this case, the opposite action is also possible when metal objects do not approach the Ionic, but on the contrary, if they move away. For example, if recaptured or abandoned enemy positions, a rifle is found lying on a closed box. In a closed box, there is an explosive device with a Ionic, which is visually impossible to detect. The fighter picking up the rifle and moving it away from the box also changes the magnetic field, which affects the magnetometer of the Ionic, causing an explosion. So how clever are all of these different variants here? So you move towards something which is disguised as a bomb and you set it off because you've got metal on you, or there's metal near it that if, oh, that's a rifle. I've captured this dugout as a rifle. There, I need a rifle or an ammo magazine or whatever. You pick it up, you put it in your pouch, and then you start walking away and the thing explodes. That's pretty clever stuff there. And all sorts of variants as well. Now we are going on to decoys. Here's an advanced Ukrainian M777 decoy, which simulates the operation of a howitzer by releasing smoke from the barrel. I'll just make that a little bit bigger. So here's I don't know if it's, I presume it's a metal decoy, and we have metal M777s as well that have on top of them solar panels, small solar panels that gently heat the metal of the decoy. And what that does is it makes the decoy look warmer, like it has been fired. So when you have a thermal drone fly, a Russian thermal drone, you're thinking there's a warm bit of metal over there, and it looks like the shape of a howitzer M777, and they go and blow it up. So you don't have to build like a very expensive M777. You just build something that vaguely looks like it out of metal, whack a bit of a solar panel on top and warm it, or in this case, have a smoke generator coming out, a bit like a Hornby railway train that used to generate those little puffs of smoke. My grandpa used to have a railway set in his loft, and he spent many an hour as a kid up there. He just had amazing. He had like a cricket pitch. He had a ski. He had like a mountain. He had cable cars. He had roads. He had like fountains creating water, all this stuff, model railway, and it's just like, oh, it was absolutely amazing. Anyway, I digress. So decoys are also being innovated. Okay, we're getting there. Ukrainians over 60 can now join the armed forces of Ukraine. Those who wish to apply have to also pass they only get a 1-year contract, and they have to pass a medical and blah, blah, blah. But I was saying this morning that is really useful because that's a demographic area where they can still pull from. They have a desperately bad, one of the worst demographic outlooks in the world. They've got the lowest infancy rate and the highest mortality rate in the world. Ukraine is buggered, and that's why they are very reluctant to do forced mass mobilization in 18 to 25-year-olds. I know a lot of people advocate for that. I personally understand why they don't. It would just be an absolute massacre on them economically and in terms of giving, parenting children and skilling up their workforce. So what they're looking to do is ways around that so that they don't have to do that. Now you can voluntarily join now from 18 to 25, and there are attractive incentives to do so. But also here over 60s, which, someone over 60 can easily drive they don't have to be fighting in the trenches, like running from trench to trench, but they can be driving a mobile fire unit around, and they could be, delivering supplies to depots and whatnot. So, I think that's definitely a good move. We also hear, and I reported this the other day, that 10,100 prisoners from Ukraine have been conditionally released under Article 81 of the Criminal Code and handed to the National Guard for transfer to recruitment centres. That's an awful lot of troops that they desperately needed. Okay, right. We're now, gee whiz, 1 hour 25. I'm so sorry this is taking so long. Okay, just a big thanks to you guys. Thanks to War of 1812, gifted 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Alpha Check Games, have you seen the news in Estonia? 3 Russian fighter jets just violated NATO airspace for over 12 months, not for 12 months, 12 minutes. But yes, I did. I talked about that earlier, and I think it should be shot down. Just a little, thank you very much, Alpha. Just a little to fill that NATO mug with a bit of Yorkie tea. Thank you, BME. He did that before he left. Thank you, Slav Ukrainian. And we have Robert McIntyre. Thank you for your generosity, my good man. Really appreciate that. Thanks, my man. Ole Nilsson from Denmark says, do you know about the risk for groundwater in Ukraine regarding all the batteries exploded in drones? I think there are going to be so many collateral elements of collateral damage to Ukraine. The ecocide, the environmental disasters that have been happening both from the Novokakhovka Dam to the poisoning of the river up in Kursk, then flows down the same river down into Ukraine to feed into Dnipro River. I think eventually, things like the Russians did that on purpose, but then you've got like the destruction of habitats. The Serebyansky forest has been absolutely ransacked. It's horrific. So yeah, I don't know about the details of that, but I imagine that Ukraine's going to be hurting for many a year. And F. Oink, Swedish foreign minister, had a beautiful open letter to Orban the other day. I read that, F. Oink, and it wasn't the foreign minister. I thought it was the prime minister, actually, of Sweden. And I read the entirety of that out on my live stream yesterday, and I thought it was remarkable. It was absolutely brilliant. Thanks, F. Oink. Really appreciate that. Oh, and there you are again. Fill your cup for a few days with something stronger than tea. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. And we are a little dry in the house at the moment. So it's Friday, though, and my partner's next door. I think she's cooking, and she's probably angry that I'm on a live. So I might sweeten her by saying, look, we've got Hungarian sponsorship for a bottle of wine tonight. Thank you, my good man. By the way, I'm not going to be around all of tomorrow morning because now, annoyingly, for content provision, but brilliantly for family life and children doing whatever they do and enjoying it, both of my twin boys now are playing in football teams, but they are playing in different football teams for different football clubs. And that means that they're often going to be playing at 2 different times at 2 different places. And I have to try and go and see both of them. So we've got Finn's playing for the A-League in the midst of Portsmouth, in Eastney in Portsmouth. So I'm going to have to get there for 9:30 in the morning and then back over to Stubbington for my other boy to play at 11:15, but I'm going to miss his first half. And so anyway, that just means that I won't be able to produce any content tomorrow morning. So it'll come to you in the afternoon. Hopefully that's okay for you. Okay, now I'm going to have to really race through this, aren't I? Right. So these are things tangentially connected to Ukraine. Britain is to open a huge £400 million military drone factory in Swindon. So we heard of the Ukrainian drone factory starting up in Suffolk. This is a completely different one, bringing 1,000 highly skilled jobs and positioning the town as a hub for sovereign drone manufacturing. 254,000 square foot site is due to open in 2026. And will cover the full production cycle from prototyping to manufacturing and research. It will bring AR5 drone production to the UK for the first time while scaling up existing work on the AR3 platform used by the Royal Air Force. It's a clear demonstration that the government is making defence an engine for growth across the UK, says John Healey, the Defence Secretary. I talked about this previously. That is not the best stimulus for an economy because it does go into big conglomerates and companies rather than smaller businesses, but it is a way of stimulating your economy. There's no doubt about that. And UK is driving economic growth through its military industrial complex at the moment, getting closer to Europe to do so, getting sales of big naval ships to Norway and some other ones on the way, I think, to Australia and elsewhere. So this is Tekeva's expansion will bring high-skilled jobs and world-leading drone manufacturing to Swindon while strengthening defence supply chains. I don't know who owns it. Carl Brew, director of Tekeva Defence, said the Swindon site will be central to the company's 400 million overmatch programme, adding the site will play blah, 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 blah. Swindon has its historical ties to UK manufacturing, supporting the production of Spitfires during World War II. So I presume that's a UK company that's setting up a massive manufacturing facility there. This is connected to the war in Ukraine. Like, that would have happened had Ukraine not been invaded by Russia. We wouldn't have been building a $400 million drone manufacturing facility. I'm certain of that. Now, BAE Systems has said they've been working alongside UK industry partners Kinetic to demonstrate how a Eurofighter Typhoon can control a swarm of uncrewed aircraft. So a Typhoon can fly, they would hope, and control a swarm of drones. These crewed-uncrewed teaming trials, and this has been talked about a lot recently, about the integration of crewed and uncrewed stuff. So having drones working alongside planes. So you can have like a larger drone, like a kind of Reaper style drone, doing stuff, say over the Black Sea, and you might have had like 5 planes doing particular functional whatever, and now you could maybe use 3 planes to do the core stuff and 2 drones doing, I don't know, support of those planes in some way. So there's a lot of talk about integrating crewed and uncrewed material. So these crewed-uncrewed teaming trials were conducted using current operational systems, including Link 16, the tactical data link used by NATO's Frontline fast jet fleet today. Then we have on the plane front. So basically, UK is involved in making a 6th-generation fighter, which is the Tempest, together with Japan and I don't know, who else is it? Italy. But then Germany and France are supposed to be getting together to make this flagship 100 billion euro fighter jet, except they keep having arguments. So Dassault doesn't get on with Airbus, I think, and then, whatever. And so they're having these arguments to the point where Berlin's tensions with Paris over Europe's flagship 100 billion euro fighter jet program are pushing Germany to explore how to replace France with Sweden or even the UK unless a deal is struck by the end of the year. So that's not going well at the moment. But there are other projects going on too, including the Tempest. And here again, this is influenced by what's going on in Ukraine 100%. On the border with Russia, Lithuania's defense ministry has opened the first of 9 schools across the country where children aged 10 and older and adults will learn to fly, assemble and program FPV drones and other types of drones. So, wow. Then we're going to go to Germany. I do not work for Rheinmetall, says Nicholas Drummond. He's a former, UK-based defense strategist, advisor and commentator with a background in the British Army. Was he an MP at one point? They are a competitor to the company I advise. So, I'm going to lay it out now. I have nothing to do with Rheinmetall. However, The severe threat posed by drones mandates an air defense system like the Sky Ranger. So this is relevant because we've already talked about the Sky Ranger. Ukraine are getting these. Like the Sky Ranger, with a fast-firing 30mm or 35mm cannon, the Bundeswehr plans to acquire 500 of these, which will give it an unmatched counter-drone capability. While the Sky Ranger is expensive, there is nothing else that presently offers the same level of effectiveness out to 5 kilometers. So this is a system that can give you a 4x4 kilometer square of no drones, is the claim. The UK certainly needs to mount its existing Starstreak HVM and LMM on a replacement platform for the Stormer. So we have the Stormer. In fact, Ukraine has a bunch of Stormers that they're operating quite successfully. They use these Starstreak missiles that are really good, but that's more like your ManPads type things, you know, launched from a platform, but that platform will be quite old now, so we need to update that. So we, you know, that looks like the Boxer platform that the RCH-155, the remote controlled howitzer that we and Germany will be co-producing, but it's a German thing really, and that's what the Ukrainians are also going to get, the RCH-155, but it's been delayed because I think they are now getting some feedback from the one they gave to Ukraine, which they've realized might need some tinkering with, so I think there's a bit of delay on that. But anyway, it also needs a cannon system because it cannot afford to fire 100,000-pound missiles at 1,000-pound or even 30,000-pound drones. And that's the issue. So you need these machines that fire much cheaper munitions into the air. That said, those rounds, because they're big rounds that they fire, they're not cheap. Like the ones from the Gepards are sort of, I don't know, I've heard anything from $500 to $1,000 for one of those rounds. So you fire like 100 of those into the air at night, and then suddenly actually you spent an absolute ton of money that could have been spent on a missile. So yeah, be interesting to know what the cost of those rounds are. Now, Rheinmetall is buying German shipbuilder naval vessels, Lürsen, to expand into naval defense and create a naval powerhouse. Rheinmetall are really good because they weren't one of the bigger ones, Rheinmetall, although we hear about them all the time with Ukraine. They're not actually, they haven't been as big as these other companies. But I think because of the currency they've generated with helping Ukraine out so much, they've actually become a big deal now. Anyway, the deal, part of Europe's defense industry consolidation, adds Lürsen's frigates, corvettes, and shipyards to Rheinmetall's portfolio. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. Right, Czech company LPP, and this is connected to Ukraine more possibly. So Czech company LPP has presented their new JWI 4000 drone interceptor. It's an advanced drone system with folding fixed wing design. So that's what it looks like there. For near vertical takeoff with optional Rato booster, designed to intercept and eliminate enemy drones and one-way attack drones. Special emphasis is placed on the ability to counter the Garand 2 or the Shahid 136 type drones and their derivatives. The system combines high speed, compact size, advanced sensors, powerful propulsion systems, integration of AI, directional fragmentation warhead, and it's designed to work and be integrated with existing detection segments of air defense infrastructure, potentially to work with dedicated detection radars. The interceptor reaches up to 4,000 meters for high altitude targets with 20 minutes of flight time at maximum altitude and reaches speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour thanks to its electric ducted fan engine. And it also destroys enemy drones having a directional fragmentation warhead weighing up to 1.5 kilograms. Like the MTS OWA one-way attack drones from LPP, the JWI is powered by AI and searches for and destroys targets completely autonomously, making the drone unjammable. And like the MTS, hundreds of which are already being produced and delivered to Ukraine, the JWI 4000 is likely to soon be or has already been deployed in combat in Ukraine. So when you're hearing Zelensky say we've got 1,000 interceptor drones, it could be that they got a whole bunch of these sitting around, or not sitting around, maybe being utilized on a consistent basis. Now, we talked about the US pissing everyone off so much that they're starting to lose deals. They've had F-35 deals lost, Portugal and Denmark. Denmark's now not buying Patriots. They're going to buy SAMP-T. And we've also heard about how Canada is cooling off on the potential to buy more F-35. So the US has hit back and they've warned Canada. Canada is reviewing its plan to buy 88 F-35 jets, Decision is expected by September the 22nd, so very shortly. The US has warned of serious consequences if Canada cancels. Wow, so much for the free market. If you don't buy our stuff, we are going to punish you. Canada is considering the Swedish Gripen as an alternative. The US opposes running 2 fighter fleets. So we'll see how that turns out. And Representative Don Bacon, who's an American Republican representative, says, I hope the administration learns that treating allies with huge disrespect comes at a price. Yeah, well said. And finally, on to Russian stuff. So Russia is building its alternative to Starlink, according to the space agency head. He says that, backed by Roscosmos, the project, so the Russian space agency, the project aims to challenge US billionaire Elon Musk's SpaceX aerospace company, whose Starlink internet terminals have played a crucial role in securing Ukraine's communications during the war. Ukraine claims almost 50 components in Russia's latest jet drone are from overseas, 45 from the US, 8 from China, 7 from Switzerland. Germany, UK, and Japan, I think, all had like 1 or 2 pieces each. And finally, as I said the other day as well, Russia is copying Ukraine and actually maybe even doing it in a larger scale. So these are these Yak-52s, the old World War II era propeller planes. Adopting the Ukrainian experience, Russia has created an aviation unit to intercept long-range drones. Currently, the unit comprises 6 aircraft, including the Yak-52 and Yak-18T, with expansion plans. There are also plans to modify the aircraft by installing fully functional turrets. So it could be, you know, a proper World War II looking thing with a machine gun turret on the back to take out Ukrainian drones. Anyway, there you go. That is today's military aid news, and there was a lot of it to go through. I hope I didn't bore you too much. It's amazing that you are still there with me. Just seeing if there are any comments that I've missed. There are obviously loads of comments I've missed that are going to be super pertinent, and I would love to share with you all. I just, things to do with booby-trapped mines and whatnot. I mean, we heard at the beginning of the war when civilians were killed, they put mines under civilian bodies. So you pick up the civilian body to clear up the bodies, and it blows up. It was horrific. Somebody's saying that USA, so that's Chris, USA has supposedly created an AI-controlled missile cruiser with a speed of 57 miles an hour and 1,200 mile range. 57 miles an hour. That's not, are you sure? Is it not more than, would it be 570? 57 is a pretty slow cruise missile. Missile cruiser with a speed of 57 miles an hour and 1,000, but an AI cruise missile. There you go. Worrying times, or one might say. Right. I don't know what Scruffy's referring to. Saab left the Euro stealth program. Looks like they might come out on top in the end after all. I don't know the exact. So what coming in on the Franco-Russian or Franco-German coming in with the Germans there. He might be referring to that. So much stuff to discuss. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I just want to give a big old thanks to everyone. There was one comment that I had from earlier. Oink, I'll need to inform you about the current opinions in Hungary. I guess misinformation propaganda is rampant towards the elections in April 2026. I feel so sorry for the Hungarians. There's going to be so much Russian interference. But thanks for all of your support, Oink, today, and comments. Thanks for Robert McIntyre. Thanks to all of you guys. All just remains to be said. If I can actually use my mouse, remains to be said that we are doing our ATP Geopolitics Autumn Harvest campaign for drones. We're not. Autumn Harvest donated. Oh no, that's a whole lot. We're just okay. I suddenly thought we had picked up 56,000. No, that's the entire Autumn Harvest campaign. But we have almost got to our first vehicle out of 2. That's amazing. 10,477. That is incredible. So go to atpgeo.com/donate and this will be your landing page. Just a big thanks to all. I'll thank these people, I think, tomorrow morning, but some great support. I thanked Art H this morning, and I put my Kiwi accent, and someone had a go at me for doing accents. He said it's really cringe. And, you know, when you do these Australian accents, they don't even sound blah, blah, blah. I was like, right, first of all, I don't care. It's cringe. I mean, the whole point is that it's cringeworthy. And I make you uncomfortable with my very bad accents. The second of all, you clearly don't know your accents because I was doing a Kiwi accent. So if you were saying I was doing a bad Australian accent, I'll take that because you didn't realize it was a Kiwi accent. So anyway, stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Really, that's not important. It's a boat, right? Cruiser. That's what we mean by cruiser. It's not a missile, but a boat that carries missiles 1,200 kilometers. Now you're talking. Excellent stuff. So thanks. I appreciate that clarification there. So that would be a pretty fast-moving naval asset, not an air asset. So sorry for my misinterpretation there. Yeah, I talked about this last time, Nigel. Nigel Goodinson mentions that US banned the sale of 20-odd Danish F-16s to Ukraine. They went to Argentina as well, together with spares. Yeah, this was to stop the Argentinians buying Chinese jets. And so the Americans put a stop from Denmark sending a bunch of F-16s to Ukraine that were due to go to Ukraine. And the Americans stopped them going to Ukraine and made them go to Argentina instead. And that then stopped them buying the Chinese planes, but then Ukraine dipped out from, I forget how many it was, but it was over 20, only 20, over 20 planes there. So that really sucked. Anyway, Kiwi is just a bad Australian. Australia is just, isn't that West Island of New Zealand? That's what Australia is, isn't it? It's just West Island. North Island, South Island, West Island. Anyway, there you go. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. A big love to you all. Really appreciate your support. I'm going to get on with Friday, as should you all. Just go and don't think about war. Don't think about the growing autocracy in the US. Don't think about all the problems of the world. Hug to your loved ones. Give some time to your kids, as I'm going to do now, and be good. I'm still waiting for my opportunity to do, and this is the last thing I'll say, but I'll be interested if any of you do this over the weekend or in the next week, and then report back to me. This is your homework. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Pay It Forward. I was in the local One Stop some time back, and someone came in and was like, "Can you tell us how to get to?" This is when I was using my. Now, of course, you just use your mobile phone, but this is when I had a sat nav, and someone came in and was like, "I need to get to Portsmouth, and I don't know how to get there." And blah, blah, blah. And the guy in the shop was explaining how to get there. And I was like, I was just about to say, I'll go and get my sat nav. You can borrow my sat nav as long as you get it back to me. I don't know who you are, but here's my sat nav. Get it back to me once you've visited whoever in Portsmouth, and then just come back here and give it back to me. And I was like, and that's quite a sort of nice thing to do, right? But it's this idea that I was going to say, pay it forward. But if and they go, "Oh, thank you very much for this," I'll say, "That's fine, but you've got to do 3 nice things of equal kind of significance to this. So let's try and pay it forward and get people being nice." And I've not yet found a moment where I've done it like a huge nice thing, like quite a big nice thing, go out my way, probably because I don't leave the house anymore, really. But guys, if anyone does a really nice thing and then says, "Right, I've done this nice thing, but you've got to do 3 nice things as well," let me know. Let's try and just generate some positive vibes in the world, because the world is a pretty sucky place at the moment. So if anyone does a particularly nice thing that they otherwise wouldn't have done, but you have this stuck in your head that you need to do a really big nice thing, let me know about it. And I'll big you up as being a ledge. Not that you should do things so that you get congratulations, of course, because that means that you're not really doing them altruistically. But anyway, nonetheless, it'd be great. Take care, everybody, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you, Cheryl and mods, for being legends. atpgeo.com/donate. And yes, and actually, Karen, you're right. It doesn't have to be that big. But if you do a nice thing, even if it's small, say it has to be paid forward 3 times. However big, you're quite right, Karen. We don't need to go big. Let's be modest. You can go big, but you can go small too. Just make sure it's paid forward. Okay, take care. Big love.